Alright, what's up, what's good? The Wolf is back once again with another Let's Talk video, and with the PS5 controller and features being shown off recently by Jeff Keighley and PlayStation, I wanted to make a video about what my own personal design, features, and layout of what I would make for my own version of the PS5 controller would look like and be and everything, and the controller that I will most likely be trying to make happen, whether it be through custom modding or using a platform like Twitter to push for a pro design made by like Nacon or whoever else, since Nacon already basically makes a pretty close to my specs version of a controller, being the Nacon Revolution Unlimited PS4 license, controller, Sony license controller, which now has actually a version 3 out there. So recently, Jeff Keighley made the first publicly available hands-on demo and showed off PS5 gameplay using the brand new DualSense controller. He showed features such as the built-in speaker and mic and the new adaptive triggers. Now, the tech of DualSense we've seen similarly in controllers like the Switch Pro controller and the stick units that are a part of the system itself out of the box. Basically, DualSense is a much more fluid way of relaying a sense of touch using vibrations instead of rumble feedback, which is like rumble, it's a big weight that spins around, rumbles in your hands, gives you that kind of sense. But the DualSense is just way more of a more fine-tuned vibration in the palm of your hands. Now, adaptive triggers, however, is something a little more new. This tech brings the ability to be able to feel the drawback of a bowstring, or maybe even the feeling of the trigger, pulling in FPS games. So when you're pulling the trigger on a gun, you can feel, just how sensitive the trigger is. Think possibly how customizing a trigger in game could possibly lead to pressure being applied to the controller itself. Whether or not you want to turn that feature off or customize the feedback of it like you possibly could do in, when you're using a steering wheel and pedals, for example, on a racing game, you can kind of turn back the feedback, the rumble and all that. So at different angles of the trigger pull, there can also be mapped different senses of touch. Now, of course, the light bar, touchpad, and all PS4 buttons, including share options, and yes, the PlayStation button, are all returning. So returning features from the PS4 DualShock controllers also include the headphone, mic jack, and similar designed analog sticks. I kind of also wonder if we're going to be feeling the DualSense inside the triggers itself, since Microsoft and Xbox have done that before in the past with their controllers. Alright, so you might be wondering, what would my own personalized controller look like features wise, since I am very picky when it comes to my controllers, and I guess that's also the point of this video. So let's get into it. So to begin with, to start it all off with the shell of the controller, what you're going to be holding in your hands, how the comfort and the feel of it. So for me personally, I think the best controller shell design that just kind of feels good in the hands and kind of fits in my hands is actually the Xbox Elite controller. Now I know that there is a second version of this, which I don't actually own, but it seems very similar in design except for the rubber paddings, which, I mean, you can see they've kind of started to fall off on my controller. That was the one thing about this controller. I've also heard that, and I've seen actually, that these top, the bumpers up top, they fall apart pretty easily. But form-wise, like for feeling it in your hands, I think the PS5 controller is going to be similar to this, but not only this, but also the Xbox One X kind of, it is kind of a chunky controller for the PS5. So this is what the PS5 controller is kind of looking like, the shell casing of the controller. So which layout of the controller would I go with personally? Would I go with the normal PlayStation controller with the 2 analog sticks on the bottom, and of course, that original stylized version of the PlayStation controller, or would I go with the Xbox where you have the analog sticks on the top and bottom as such? For me personally, it doesn't really matter. Each layout is fine. I've kind of gotten used to both the PlayStation and I've played enough years on the Xbox to really like either which way of if your thumbs are this way or they're both down here, it's fine for me. I think though I would possibly, just in the case that when you are playing the game, so you're playing, and you want to hit that D-pad over on the side, it's a lot easier to kind of slap it with your thumb over here than trying to reach up or do any of that trickery, that you would do with your thumbs. So I think I actually would go with, and Nakon's are also done it too. I think a lot, like the die-hard PlayStation people would absolutely go for the PlayStation 4 or PS4, DualShock 4 type of shell. I think I'd go with the Xbox One. So now analog stick wise, I would absolutely go with concave sticks, deep concave sticks. Also, like just a good way of like getting your thumb into those sticks so you really can feel, just it. I don't want the domed ones where I'm kind of like pushing the sticks on the side. I want to be dug into the analog sticks and have full control. When I'm playing competitively, I want that full control. Now, the PlayStation controller itself, the stock sticks, it has kind of a slight bit of a bump. You can feel it if you rub your thumb over the top of the analog stick. You feel like a bit of a bump in the middle, and that has gotten me killed more times in games than I care to admit, just on the fact of you're trying to swing the analog stick over and you accidentally hit the analog stick in. There we go. Why is it doing that? Again, the melee's going off and I'm not hitting melee. I'm not tapping the stick in, I'm not hitting the back thing, is automatically doing it in the game. It was doing that in multiplayer also. Yep. It's my controller. It's my damn controller pushing in on the stick. This is the reason why I like Razer controllers more.
Listen up, soldier. Win here and you return to the front
that's
line.
frustrating.
If you lose, you're done. Time to earn your
I
freedom,
felt it. So it's literally the analog stick. Me up. Off. Alright. Now the other big one too, on top of accidentally clicking in the sticks because of that little bump in the controller, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say the L3 and R3 buttons are inside the sticks itself. Let's just get rid of those. Let's just take those little buttons out and either put them on the back of the controller of like a back button on the back of the controller, maybe even like tucked in back here or something, or just out of the way somehow, maybe even up here possibly, so then you can tap them up here, but get them out of the sticks, because the number one thing that creates stick wear and drift in your analog sticks is having the little itty bitty buttons inside the analog stick sockets, and when those, because they're just little plastic pieces that are in there holding those into place, when those go, then your analog stick will start to be off tilt and everything, and you start getting drift and such. And plus, it's just a little pin holding the sticks into place. It's a little pin and a little itty bitty spring. So yeah, let's just get the buttons out of the sticks. Let's go on to a new design for it. So one thing that I can definitely tell you about the Nakon controller is they use these really giant buttons, and if you put these buttons versus like the regular controller buttons, they look, I don't know, they look kind of weird. You can't see the triangle because my green screen is happening right now, but they don't look weird, but they feel kind of weird because they are almost, it almost feels like they're double the size. I'm not the biggest fan of the huge buttons like that. When I'm playing fighting games and everything, yeah, I can kind of roll my thumb, but you accidentally hit the wrong button. I've done that a few times over again. I would rather have the smaller, kind of precise feeling buttons on the controller. But also a big note is something like the Razer controller has very clicky buttons. Like they're like a mouse click. I like that. You can actually you get way more wear and tear out of these buttons. At the same time, you can beat on them. They're all right. So if you're playing fighting games and you're really getting in there and stuff, you can actually get your inputs out quicker. But at the same time, they last longer. And I don't know, just like the click, because I always wear headphones, doesn't bother me. But I will say though, the D-pad. So the D-pad on this, this is where I'd want something different. So mechanical buttons, sure, but you can hear these buttons. Now the thing is, they sit so far off from the. You can almost kind of see it, but they sit so far off from the shell that you get a very long click in them, and that bugs the hell out of me. I can't play fighting games on this controller. It just doesn't work. So I have to still stick with something like this. So the best D-pad I've ever used on a controller, I think, for the money and everything, maybe could be upgraded a little bit, is this bad boy right here. This cross D-pad, I feel, is probably one of the best because it has individual pads instead of like one big pad for the whole thing. You don't get ghost inputs, which is something that happens a lot on the PlayStation controller. So this D-pad here, when you're holding down and you rock it back and forth, you can actually see the buttons wiggle. And when you're holding down and back to block and everything, and then you try and do a back forward, sometimes the back forwards don't work, especially online in a very laggy environment and everything. In online fighting games wise, it becomes a major pain. So yeah, I would like to see, I don't know, the cross D-pad, maybe mechanical buttons. I've heard that those work the best for fighting game wise. I mean, fighting games are probably the biggest thing. That and something like a Crash Bandicoot also, or Spyro. You really want to use those old school games on the D-pad. It just, it feels right for me to do that. All right, so the next part is the PlayStation share buttons. So the PlayStation button, the share button, the options button, and all that. Of course, I would keep those in there, no problem at all. Touchpad, light bar, absolutely. Now, my only design thing on that would be for the top of the light bar. So when you're sitting there and you can see that light bar shining up, it does create a bit of an atmosphere, and it can be a very good indicator. So if you get hit in the game and this indicator turns like red, it can give you another like, oh, I'm low on health or whatever. Sometimes it'll go from green to yellow to red. Resident Evil, I'm pretty sure it does that. When you get hit in Resident Evil, this thing turns red. When you're playing GTA, it turns red and blue when the cops are chasing after you and such. So, when you're playing Jedi Fallen Order, the color of your lightsaber is literally the color that this lights up. So it can have its very cool atmospheric advantages. I do play with it kind of under my desk because it's just a weird thing. I don't like seeing my hands while I'm playing. It's a weird thing with me, I know. But also a built-in battery if possible. Which I'm pretty sure the PS5 controllers are going to have a built-in battery, so that's like whatever. But if you go for a Pro controller, I would love to see a built-in battery. On top of the built-in battery thing, I would definitely like to see the USB-C be very much utilized, which is, I'm pretty sure, is going to be the case for the PS5 controller standard. The other one that does a pretty cool job is Nacon, and if you notice, it's a circle in there. It's a circle right there. It's a 3-pin connector braided cable, which means pick it up. You get the very nice braided cable. It's braided is not that expensive nowadays, so it won't jack up the price too much. But if you have pets or if you're rolling over the cable with your chair or something, it actually saves it in the long run. Now, something else that I don't know why I don't know why the PlayStation 5 controller doesn't have this. It should just come standard. I think they're probably going to try and sell the accessory to plug into the controller that they already have out on the market. But I don't know why it's not a thing. Is back, back pedals or buttons on the back of the controller. Some way, somehow, back pedals or buttons. They say it just gives you extra options. It gives you extra micro buttons that you can map. So take the L3 and R3 off your analog stick to save wear and tear on those. Put them on the back pedal, back buttons, and you can actually run and melee if you need to way quicker. Or give us the option, because it's already in the system software anywhere, is to be able to remap buttons. So there you go. Map the micro buttons to your slide, your duck, your reload, whichever ones that you want. If we could remap on the fly, that'd be really great too. So then, of course, now the reason why I haven't actually jumped into the whole pro controller market right now, and this one, this was the last pro controller that I'd really jumped into, was the Nacon one, and they do have the Nacon Revolution Ultimate, like I said, which is pretty much these specs that have already been listed off, except for currently there is no pro controller with the DualSense and adaptive triggers. If they do make one, if Nacon does make one, I'm probably going to check that one out just to see if it's really worth the money or not. So the DualSense is, instead of, as I said earlier, instead of the rumble, so your controller right here, there's weights inside of this controller that they spin around and they make that rumble feel. There's smaller rumbles over here, bigger rumbles over there. It's all right. It gives a decent sense, but the DualShock, which you can actually already test out and see in the Switch Pro controller, and the regular, little wiggle waggle sticks that the Switch actually comes with as part of the whole package deal, that actually is basically DualSense right there. It's pretty much just like vibrations instead of rumbles. So instead of it being, the big weight spinning, it's actually just a vibration. So on top of that, the adaptive triggers, which the triggers are, as I said, pretty brand new. So the triggers will work in the sense just like you can do with the Nacon controllers. So Nacon, you can actually program the angle of the trigger press to do different stuff. So where the trigger actually responds to your button press, you can put it at different angles and everything. So what they've done is taken this a step further, and they've made it to where you can actually get a feel for, and it's also a harder press for, pulling back bows. And so when you're pulling back a bow and arrow, you feel the tension on the bow when you are driving in grass versus on pavement and everything. You can feel the difference in the controller, in the triggers and everything. Now, I think Sony could take this even a step further and take the DualSense and put it into the triggers somehow, just as the Xbox controller does with vibration inside the triggers. Some games do it, not all games do it, but they do have the vibration inside the triggers, so you can actually feel it. Like when you're playing Forza, you can actually feel it. Sometimes, I'm pretty sure it's Forza, in the trigger itself. One other little thing would be compatibility. I would love to see it be the PS5 controllers be compatible with PS4, PS5, and definitely PC, which is PS4 controllers don't have a really good history of being compatible with the PC. You have to do third-party software and get that running and everything. I'd love to see Sony and Microsoft come together and work on that, of getting the PS5 controllers, especially the Pro controllers, which a lot of the Pro controllers can already do it. If you are using something like the Elite's controller, you can actually plug that in and it works just like that, no problem. But anything PlayStation related, it's the Windows the drivers for it and everything, it runs really weird. Sometimes it even comes up as an Xbox controller. Programs like Steam, help out with that process, they automatically push the PS4 button configuration into the games and everything. But I don't know, maybe some more PC support if possible. Bonus round here. So custom paint job that I would make on my own personal controller. Not something that they could mass produce or anything, but my own custom paint job for it. I think I would do something like a black shell, blacked out buttons with the like the X, circle, triangle, and square being then maybe like a gold. And then I would do something like the wolf head logo on the touchpad. Maybe even like the worded werewolf logo on the touchpad, and just like detailing in gold, but the whole thing mostly in black. I think that would look really awesome on a controller. So there you have it, the PS5 controller, my custom design version of it. And you might realize that I left out a couple features that are going to be in the regular PS5 controller. That being the speaker and the microphone. I feel like those are two very big missed things. I just feel that those two features are two just extras that don't need to be there at all. They're just kind of driving up the price of the controller and possibly also wearing out the battery life of the controller itself. There's no real reason or want. For the most part, I do definitely feel that people use headphones, or they use headphones with built-in microphones, or if you really need to, every cell phone comes with, most of the time, a headphone, like earbuds with a little microphone on it. I feel like just having the headphone microphone jack built into the controller is good enough. We don't actually need like speakers and this and that stuff. There was in the demo that Jeff Keighley was showing off where you had to like blow into the controller to make a wind wheel spin.
Now this one, you actually have to blow into the controller.
Again, you could do it through your microphone, because all it's doing is really just hearing the sound in the microphone and making the program work. So I just think that those two features are very unnecessary, and like back pals would serve so much more in the long run of just having those extra macro buttons put in there. At the same time, I would love to see it be more like a pro, like the standard pro controller be the standard controller that comes with the PS5. I would love to see that kind of the elite thing that we know of as being like that $120 controller mark. I'd love to see that be manufactured more or less into a compact design. It would be cheaper, sure, to keep the price of the controller down, cheaper build of the tech, but just incorporate into the standard controllers. And then it makes the pro controllers have to get better quality. So then it's just pushing the industry forward on that, on the design of the controllers and everything. So, this is about a look at the PS5 controller. A little bit of a let's talk on what I would make for, what I'm going to try and make for my PS5 controller. We're going to see what kind of pro controllers are out there, whether it be Scuff, Nacon, or whatever other thing are on the markets, accessories wise and all that stuff. If the PS4 little trigger thing, the little back pal thing works on the PS5 controller, I might try it. But for the most part, I'm going to be looking for a pro controller for the PS5. I just want the DualSense, and I want the adaptive triggers, because that's going to be... Oh, and I almost forgot the 6-axis, which I'm pretty sure are still there. They just didn't make like a big deal out of it. So we'll see if that also stays, which the pro controllers mostly don't have 6-axis in them. So that's going to be very interesting to see how game developers program in the 6-axis. We haven't seen a lot of the 6-axis in any of the newer releases. I don't even think The Last of Us didn't even have 6-axis built in. I can't remember if you shook the controller for the lights in The Last of Us or not. I don't think you did, so I don't even think they're really using the 6-axis as much as they possibly could. I have heard some people say that could you use gyroscope for aiming, which would be very, very awesome. But I don't know if they would do it that way or if they would go with the light bar source with the PlayStation camera, and then you could, aim it like a light gun. Yeah, so that would be that'd be something to be interesting if they could actually put that into use somehow. So, anyways, yeah, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for stopping by, and as always, I will have more videos up on the channel, more playthroughs. Tone Wolf over there doing music videos. HDC's 40th anniversary of Back in Black is coming up, so definitely going to be doing some stuff with that. Twitch.tv/Warwolf. Also, for gameplay stuff before it hits YouTube, I usually live stream everything unless it's the backlog stuff, then that is exclusively on YouTube. So yeah, with that being said, I will see ya next time.